Trouble for House Speaker Chris Welch. Governor Pritzker calls for more transparency about the Harry Benton sexual harassment scandal. While Democrats huddle in private, Republicans go on the attack. Let's get to the point.
From Chicago's very own, with WGN political editor Tamon Bradley, this is The Point.
Good evening. House Speaker Emanuel Chris Welch was already hearing it from his members before Governor Pritzker upped the pressure today. At issue, Welch's handling of sexual harassment complaints made against former state representative Harry Benton. A bombshell Chicago Tribune report alleged that Welch's office slow-walked investigating allegations made against Benton. Earlier this month, following an IG probe, the state rep resigned at Speaker Welch's request. That report has not been made public. Here's what Governor Pritzker said about the matter at an unrelated press conference.
The Speaker has a responsibility to be utterly and completely transparent about the situation, to make sure that he is letting the public know, as well as in particular his members know exactly what happened, and to the extent that he made mistakes, to own up to those mistakes. I have urged publicly the Speaker to make sure that all of the information is out there and that he lets people know not only the things that were on paper, that were written or done back then, but also what he was thinking in that process.
Pritzker says House members must decide how to address the controversy.
You're the top Democrat in the state of Illinois.
Yes.
Do you think Speaker Welch should step down as Speaker?
I'm saying that we need to know all of the information. You've reported some, I get that, but there is more information and more revelation, in my view, that must come. And indeed, I believe that the Speaker should answer questions about that and be very transparent.
The Tribune reports Welch's office received complaints that Benton had engaged in a lewd conversation earlier this year with a lobbyist at a River North bar, and that prompted his office to take action. They were slower to act 3 years ago, the paper reports, when a former Benton staffer outlined harassment allegations. The former staffer, who previously interned in Welch's office, shared screenshots of social media communication by Welch that she says made her feel uncomfortable. Pritzker called for the release of the IG Benton investigation. The Illinois House Democratic Women's Caucus released a statement saying, in part, simply referring a complainant to the Legislative Inspector General is insufficient, they said. Now, Welch has been reaching out to members trying to manage the fallout. A Democratic state representative was booked to appear on our program tonight, but then canceled. Republicans are on the attack. The Illinois House Republican Organization cut this video.
Speaker Welch has been spreading the love on Instagram. Just see for yourself. He likes photos like this, and this, and this, and this. And let's not forget some of the emojis he loves to use.
Republican State Representative Nicole La Ha joins us now on The Point. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Representative, I gather from that video that your party released that you see a chance to topple Speaker Welch.
Well, it's obviously been a very busy month in the General Assembly, and not in a good way. You know, when we have serious situations like this, there are a lot of stories, a lot of moving parts, a lot of new information that's coming out almost hourly at this point, and the facts matter. How we get that information, how we get those facts, it all matters. And so, you know, the Ethics Commission meets on Thursday, and they really need to vote to release this report. It matters.
Harry Benton is gone. I'm wondering if you think that the system worked in this instance.
Yeah, I mean, yes, partially, but it's very important to know who knew what and when. And then when we have that information, we all need to do the right thing. We all need to make sure that we're acting accordingly, so we don't continue this culture that we've been seeing here. So it's important that we keep pushing, we keep asking questions.
Mike Madigan's long tenure ended amid harassment allegations. You joined the legislature when Speaker Welch had the gavel. Just curious, how has he treated you? What have your interactions been like with him?
I've had nothing but professional interactions with the Speaker and all of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle.
So the political world is discussing emojis tonight and what might be appropriate, and maybe it's generational, maybe it's subjective. Curious, if you posted something to Instagram and someone hit the like button, what would your reaction be?
I mean, there's bad actors in every single industry that we work in. It's how we handle these situations, and how we, act and conduct ourselves in a professional manner. As elected officials, we are expected to, maintain a professionalism at all times, and that includes social media.
Is it unprofessional to like a picture?
No, I don't think it's unprofessional to like a picture. I think intention is very important. I think it's important that we are, maintaining boundaries and respect, and making sure that, when we like a picture, that it's of good standing.
In light of all this, do you think that Springfield needs to revisit the conduct rules and how the investigations are done?
Well, House Republicans have long been calling for ethical reform in the form of legislation. It's nice to see that we're starting to get some support, especially, from the Democrat ladies on the other side of the aisle. It's just really unfortunate now that there are more victims. Let's call the bills. They're there.
I'm just wondering, are there problem lawmakers, lobbyists, staffers, other actors in Springfield that people kind of know about and nothing's been done about them?
I mean, we can't legislate better behavior, but we can make sure ethic laws are in place and in the books if that behavior should arise, and people should be held accountable.
What was the reaction in the Republican caucus when you learned about all of this?
I'll be completely honest with you. This has been a lot to process. It's been a lot to hear all of the stories. It's been a lot to hear the dialect back and forth. That's why transparency is so important in this process. We need to make sure that we bring back trust to the General Assembly. We need to make sure that, we are being transparent. That's why people don't trust government right now. We need to get back to stronger relationships with the people we serve. And to be completely honest with you, the people in Illinois should be really disappointed by this. There are a lot of things in Illinois that we should be fixing, and talking about unethical behavior is not one of them right now.
The harassment culture. Is there a harassment culture? Is it worse than other environments and workplaces, you think, in Springfield?
I have a very eclectic background. I've been in a lot of industries, and I think like I said earlier, there are bad actors in every single industry we are a part of. And that does not mean that people should get a pass. That just means that we should come together, I'm a huge advocate for making sure that we are protecting victims no matter what industry we're working in.
I got about 20 seconds left. If you run into Speaker Welch, what might you say to him about all this?
There's a lot going around right now. The speaker needs to be transparent through this whole process.
All right, State Representative Nicole La Ha, thanks for your time tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We're back in 60 seconds. City Council and Mayor Brandon Johnson once again at odds during a meeting today. Alders did not take up a vote on a proposed referendum question backed by the mayor. It would have asked voters if Springfield should act to impose a 3% tax on people who make more than $1 million a year.
It does speak to the fact that the city council is out of touch with the people of Chicago and, quite frankly, the people of the country, where affordability and challenging the ultra rich to pay their fair share in taxes is the prevailing form of expectation. And for the city council to not meet that expectation, they have lost control, quite frankly, of the narrative.
The council did approve a referendum for the November ballot on recouping funds lost during Operation Midway Blitz. They also signed off on a question for next February's election as to whether the council should have its own independent lawyer. That issue sparked a heated back and forth on the council floor. Take a look.
This question does not indicate for the state of Illinois to grant this body the authority to do it. Are we also now clear? The chair recognizes Alderman Riley.
Thank you, Mr. President. The real answer is it depends on how this body were to craft the independent counsel. There are situations where we might need an enabling act by the state of Illinois. There are others that don't require that. And that, again, is, of course, the opinion of your legal counsel, who used to be our legal counsel. But we've been debating the idea of whether or not we should have one, an independent counsel for this body, for now 2 administrations. So I don't know why you're taking this personally, but this is something that we think the voters should weigh in on, because it's something this body has been endeavoring to get for quite some time. And so certainly I think it's worthy of the voters' opinion.
Okay.
Thank you,
very
Mr. President.
Very well. And there's nothing personal about it. I don't know why you're suggesting I'm taking it personal.
You seem very
One of the
agitated.
colleagues indicated
seem very
a point of clarification. Now, listen, if you want to debate my tone, we can do that. But don't intend for my emotions to be brought into this conversation. The point of clarification was offered up by one of your colleagues. I offered up that clarification. And so now that we're all clear and no one's taking it personal, the chair recognizes Alderman Napolitano.
Just a taste of today's City Council meeting. The referenda are not binding and they do not carry any legal authority. Finally tonight, a tip of the hat to Governor J.B. Pritzker, who made a stop at Diversey Bowl on the Northwest Side to visit with a bowling team that draws inspiration from his name. We like those shirts too. All right, and that is the point. I'm Tamon Bradley. There is more news tonight at 9 o'clock with Mike Lowe. Don't forget about the forecasters up next on WGN+. Good night.